Good evening, everyone. Yes, I would like to share my screen first. So, what are the concepts we covered in the last session? Kindly respond anyone in the chat box. Okay, we discussed components, components state. So, we discussed how we are going to implement a state in React. Yes, states in React. Alright. And we also discussed the concept of hooks, right? So, what is the importance of hooks concept in React? Yes, Chetan responded, state, class, function, hooks. Okay, what is the advantage of hooks in React? Why we need to use hook concept in React? Can anyone respond in the chat box? Why we need to use hook concept? Let me open the project folder. So I created a project folder in documents. So in documents we have a project folder that is with the name of project-prime. So Mahesh responded, for storing a value or data in functional component. That's also fine. It will reduce the number of concepts you need to juggle when writing React applications. Okay, so it will reduce the number of concepts you need to juggle. Okay, so the hook concept, the main responsibility of a hook in React is to implement the features of the class component. So we have few features in class component, but we don't have any kind of features in function component. The function component is nothing but is a function. So when we are going to use the features like state in functional component, that is very complex. It's not possible. So that is the reason we have to use the concept of hooks. The hooks concept was introduced in the version of 16.8.x. Okay, so I'm going to open the code part. So actually we defined a hook, but this is not that much of clear. I'm going to delete entire stuff and I would like to explain it again. So because this hooks concept is very, very important. I just removed entire data, but I have the import, React and use state from React. So I have only used it here. Right, so I'm going to create, so I suggest you to listen this concept properly, because this concept is very important for us. So this is one of the advanced concept in React, the hooks concept. So try to understand, but if you are having any kind of doubts, you can ask me. You can ask me in the chat box. Alright, so let me open the coding part. So I just open the Visual Studio Code. So before going to that, I'm going to use npm start for running the server, because it will be taken a little bit of time. Npm start. Okay, meanwhile, I'm going to type the code. So we know how to define a functional component, because we are using functional component because we are going to implement the state concept in it. So we already know how to implement the state concept in class component, but it's better to implement the state concept in functional component. That is the reason I'm using a functional component. For the functional component, we have to use the function keyword. It is like a function. So I'm going to use function, and I'm the name of the file, that is app, function app. Here we have to return a value, right? So I'm going to return a value. So I'm going to use React fragment. We already discussed about in the last session. The information, that is second largest heading. So this is sample data, and here we are able to see an error, that is attempted import error /app doesn't any default export method. Default export imported as app. So we already imported this app.js, but we didn't use any kind of export statement here. Now I'm going to export this component. Export default, and we have to use the function, that is app. Alright, so now able to see any kind of errors, but we are able to see warnings, that is used defined but never used. Whatever we are going to define here, we have to implement it. So we should not keep any kind of statements that are not useful for us. So most of the cases we are importing the statements, but we are not implementing them. So that is the worst case scenario, that affects the performance. That is the reason when we are going to import a statement or import any kind of functionality, we have to use it properly. We used to use it, but we didn't implement it anyway. Alright, so we just define this function, and let me execute this function in the browser. So that is app, the function name is app here, and here element type is invalid, expected string. We refresh. Now we're able to see sample data. So this is sample data we just implemented in the function component, that is app. Alright, so this is fine, and now we have to store the value by using useState. So for that, I'm going to define a destructure object. So const, and I'm going to use data and set data. Actually, I think we used this. And destructure means we can assign multiple values to multiple variables. So this is one variable and this is one variable. So we are assigning multiple values to multiple variables by using a single statement. But when we are going to implement by using multiple variables, this is very time-taking process, and when we are going to have bigger projects, like we need to define 1,000 variables, that is very critical for us. So that is the reason we have to use the destructure method for the improving the performance. So here I'm going to use useState, So we have to use any kind of hook as the function. So I just used useState hook as a function. And in that we have to pass the parameter that will be initialized to the first parameter of it, that is data. Here I'm going to use an object that is something like name, and I'm going to use Hanuman. Similarly, I'm going to use role. So all the data must and should be in the string format. So I just used the string format of data, a role, and I'm going to develop, and I'm going to use the full stack developer here. Full stack developer. Right, so now we can understand. So we just defined a destructured parameters. The first parameter having this object in it, that is name Hanuman, role full stack developer. But here we used set data. Set data, this is for manipulating the data or updating the data. Alright, so if you want to display the information from this data, what we have to do? We have to use the binding statement along with data dot the key. The key is name here. And save this and execute in the browser. Now we are able to see Hanuman as the result. Very similar to this, I'm going to use Hanuman is working as, again we have to use data dot role, because we are getting information from this object. So this object is stored in data variable, a data parameter. That is the reason we are using data dot name and data dot role. So here name is Hanuman, and we have a role that is full stack developer. And save this and execute in the browser. Now we are able to see the result. Hanuman is working as full stack developer. Is that clear, everyone? Up to now, how we are going to initialize the value and how we are going to retrieve that information from the object. Yes, it's clear. It's clear. So how many of you responded? So Anand responded. Durga Prasad responded. Yes, thank you. So Rajsekhar Reddy responded. Yes. So Ganesh Reddy also responded. Anil also responded. Okay. What about others? Are you able to follow the session? Yes. That's fine. It's clear. Can you explain once? Yeah, sure, definitely. Amanand, definitely I will explain. Please show once again. Okay, I will show the code and I will explain it again. Chetan also responded. Yes. Okay. Sorry for network problem. Okay. So I'm going to open the code once. So here we just used import React and we imported the useState hook. When we are going to use hook concept, we have to import like this. We have to use binding statement and we have to use the hook. So useState is one of the hook in React. So we just import it like this. And if you want to use that hook, we have to use the function. So now useState is like a method. So that is the reason we used useState as the method here. Whenever we are going to use the React hooks concept, we have to use destructure concept. So we know the importance of destructuring. So if you want me to explain the destructuring concept, I will explain it also. So whenever we are going to define variables, for example, here I'm going to where a equals to 10, where equals to 20. I just two variables, where a equals to 10 and where b equals to 20. Again, I'm going to declare where c equals to 30. So how many statements we are using here? This is, we have three statements in it. The first statement is having value 10 and we used a as the variable. And second statement is where b equals to 20. And the final statement is where c equals to 30. So we used multiple statements here. If we have 1000 number of variables, how we are going to define? So we have to create, or we have to use where keyword 1000 times, and we have to use 1,000 variable names as well as 1,000 values for initialization. So this is a complex scenario. So we have to, so this var is common here. This var is common for these three variables. So that is the reason we can avoid all the stuff here. So we can define var of a comma b comma c, and you can define the values like 10 comma 20 comma 30. So this is the concept of destructuring. So when we are going to execute the a, we are able to see 10 as the result. For b, that is 20. For c, that is 30. So this is the concept of destructuring. Destructuring is nothing but we can assign multiple values in single statement to multiple variables. Very similar to this, if we are having an array where array equals to 1 comma 2 comma 3 comma 4 comma 5 comma 6 comma 7 comma 8. Alright, so when we are going to assign all these values to specific variables, so we can use var and we can use destructuring. So a comma b comma c comma d, and we can assign the array. So what is that array? So that is the name of array. We just defined an array with the name of array. So I just represented like this. So when we are going to check the a value here, so that is having 1. Whatever b, so b is having 2. Remaining c and d are having 3 and 4 corresponding. So these are the different kinds of values. So this is how we are going to define multiple variables. But when we are going to use this array is very large than comparing to the variable names here. So remaining variables are wasted. So that is the reason we already discussed we have to use the rest operator. Whenever we are going to use rest operator, it occupies rest of the elements. I'm going to use rest operator here. Alright, so I'm going to use D. D is having, so D is having a collection. Now 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, no, not 9, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all are in a collection. So the collection name is D. So this is all about the destructuring. Very similar to this, we are using the destructuring principles or destructuring concept for declaring a state, that is use state. We just used use state. And this is const data and set data. So data is the first parameter, set data is second parameter. This data is for initializing the value and this set data is for updating the value. So we initialized a value in it. If you observe this, we initialized a value that is in object format. Very similar to this, I'm going to use 1, 2, 3 as the second parameter value. And I'm going to use the second parameter here. So that is set data I'm going to use set data. So we have to define it enclosing with the braces here. So I just used braces, set data, and save this and execute in the browser. So let me refresh. Oh, we are able to see dots, and if you observe this warning, functions are not varied as a React child. This may happen if you return a component instead of a component from render, or maybe you meant call this function rather than return it. Sorry, thanks for destructuring. Okay. And very similar to this, here we are using set data. So whenever we are going to use useState method or useState hooks concept, so the second parameter is for updating the value, not for initialization. That is the reason we are able to see one kind of error. So let me remove this. And now it's time to update the values of it. So here we used data.name and data.role. So we already discussed the first parameter is having an object in it. The roles in the objects are name and the role, and the values are Hanuman, full stack developer responsible, respectively. So Hanuman and full stack developer. So here we are calling them by using the keys. So data.name, data.role. So these are the keys here. So we are getting information based on the keys here. So this is how we are going to define a state by using use state use state hook. Is that clear, everyone? Is that clear? But if you observe this, so yeah, this is also a restructuring, but we are not able to assign multiple values because we used a function, that is use state function. Whenever we are going to use state function, that means the first parameter represents the initialization and the second parameter represents the updation. Yes, clear. Yes, clear. So what about others? Durgavasi is also clear. Okay. Yes, we got in restructuring concept. We want to, yes. So Kumar Venkata Sainikal, in destructuring concept, we want to assign the values as in different, but not in the same order. What do you mean by that? In destructuring concept, we want to assign the values as in different, but not in the same order. What is that? Which is better to write? So we know when we are going to use a functional component, we can return a value directly. But if you want to return a value in class component, we need to use render method. That means we have to render all the concepts of it. Rendering means we have to present the complete data on the web page. So here we are using, if you observe this, here we are using the return directly. So we are returning, that means we are presenting the data on the web page. That means this information is available. If you observe this information is available here. So this is called rendering. So this is called rendering. How we are going to render this? So we can use a return statement directly. But whenever we are going to use a class component, we have to use render method. The render method renders all the data on the web page. For example, if you do any kind of manipulations, the render method will work on it in the class component. But in the function component, we can return the manipulation value directly in the web page. The render method is nothing but the render method renders all the content by using return statement on the web page. So this is called rendering. So we rendered this content, but we used only return statement because we are using functional component. When we are going to use the class component, the return function or return statement is not working out. So that is the reason we have to use the render statement or render method in it. Where a equals to 1, 2, 3, 4, that means this is an array, right? This is not a destructuring. This is an array. Sir, is setData predefined function? Can we use any name? Yes, we can use any name. Any name, Mahesh. We can use any name. So I just defined for better understanding. So Kumar Venkata Sai Nikhil, that is a where ABCD. Yes, this is destructuring. But how we are going to assign the values? You have to use equal to symbol and we have to assign the values, right? That means we can assign multiple values to multiple variables by using destructure. Is that clear, everyone? We want A3, B2. Then we have to change the order in destructuring. We have to change the order in destructuring. Yes, Kumar Venkat Sai Nikhil. So if you want to get the information like this, you have to change the order. Because we are not declaring the variables dynamically. We are declaring the variables statically. Yes, it's clear. So when we are going to declare the dynamical way, we can change the order. Clear. Okay. Thank you everyone. And now it's time to change the values of it. I'm going to use on mouse over. So this is one of the event handler in React. And here we have to use set data function, because we already discussed set data is a manipulated function. By using the set data function, we can manipulate the values of this object. So I'm going to use a function. So I'm representing a function. In that, I'm going to use set data. So set data. Here, set data is like a function. We already discussed, right? So set data is like a function. This is for validating that information, or this is for updating the information available in this object. So that is the reason I used a function. And this is an object, right? So this is an object. So if you observe this, this is an object. Name and all the stuff is an object. So we have to use object here. And we can use name. I'm going to use name, and I'm going to change name to Rajesh. And similarly, comma, I'm going to use role again. I'm going to use modern developer. Alright, so we just changing the values of the object. Alright, so we just used a function, and this is the function, right? So we used braces. And if you observe this, set data is the function. Set data is the function, so we used set data in parentheses. And we are going to manipulate the values of the object, so that is the reason we used object. So in that, we are changing the information, name, Rajesh, role, modern developer. Let me save this and execute in the browser. Sir, is it possible whenever we hover over an element, it should change background color and do some zoom in and zoom out operation, zoom out animation? Okay, it is also possible. It is also possible, Chetan. So yes. So now when we are going to hover this, we are able to see the change. We are able to see the change. Very similar to this, when we are going to hover, we have to apply the so whatever. So we have to apply the styles by using condition. So I'm going to apply the styles. So here we are displaying this. So H2, that's it. So first of all, we have to define a class here. I'm going to define an object for better understanding. I'm going to define an object. So that is where style equals to, and I'm going to use background. So, and I'm going to use green. I just used green. I just created an object. Okay, so we have to use double quotations as well. Reference error. So green is not defined. Okay, green is not defined. Now it's fine. So we just we have to refresh that. So style is assigned a value but never used. Okay. So when we are going to hover it, so we have to add some kind of effect in it. So for that, so what we have to do, just think of it. So H2, that's fine. And this is a function, right? So we are not able to add any kind of attributes also. So when we are going to hover that, so we have to apply some kind of styles to it. So yes, is there any possibility? So it's possible, but we have to store the hover effect in some way. So that is one of the best question. I'm thinking about it. How to apply CSS. So okay, so first of all, so I'm going to remove all the stuff for applying this, and here I'm going to use on hover. We have to display information by using console.log statement. Console.log. I'm going to use this. So I'm going to pass a parameter. So I'm going to use e because this keyword is not working in class component. So e dot. I'm going to use target. E dot target. All right. So let me display that. Let me execute. So what will happening? So we're able to see h2 here. H2 is displaying, right? So we're able to see h2. So and what we have to do? So we have to use some kind of style. I'm going to use double binding statement again. In that I'm going to pass the style attribute. So yes, here we already used. So it's better to use the parenthesis. So let me remove this and apply the parenthesis here. So and apply that and execute it. Refresh, and we're able to see the style, but background is not applicable to this. So when we are going to hover, yes, we just displaying that information, right? So we just remove this console.log statement again. From this, I'm going to remove the console.log statement, and yes, so we have to use the braces only, right? So style, and we have to close this. One parenthesis is missing. So yes, each and everything is fine, sorry. So this one and this one, and we have to use another brace. Okay. So and save this and execute. So refresh, And when we are going to hover, so yes, this is not applicable to this. E dot target dot style, it is not applicable to this. So again, I'm going to use console.log statement because what kind of data we are getting in. So I'm just using console.log statement, and I'm using yes, here we have to use that. So let me save this and execute in the browser. So yes, we are able to see that style and background color, that is green. Yes, we are able to see that green color background. So background green. The style, and yes. So this is applying, but on mouse over, yes, that is fine, right? So either target dot style. Okay, so it's better to call a function for better understanding. I'm going to use a calling function here. So in this, I'm going to use a function that is something like change background. That's fine, right? So change background. I'm going to call a function change background, and I'm going to pass e as the parameter. E means the current object. So in the class component, we can use this keyword, but in this is the functional component, so this keyword is not supported. So we are able to see an error, that is change background is not defined. Yes, we will define that. So what we have to do, we have to define a function. So what is the function name? That is change background. So where change background equals to, this is the function, right? So all right. So and here we have to change the value of it. So again we are getting error, that is change background is not defined again. Okay. So we have to implement that inside of the function. That is the reason we are not able to get the proper result. So let me cut it and paste it in the function app. Alright, so I just used this function here. So what we are doing here, so we just used mouse over event, and we used an anonymous function, and we passed e as the parameter. Why we need to pass this e as the parameter? Because we have to trigger the event. We have to store that event. That is the reason we used e. Alright, so now I'm going to use console.log statement here, console.log, and I'm going to use e. So if you want to display proper result, you have to use e dot target dot value. Let me use target only. Execute. So first of all, we have to define e here. So again, we are getting error. Change background is not defined again. We used to change background. BACK, yes, BACK. Change background. Alright. Okay, let me save this and execute. Just refresh it. When we are going to hover, we are able to see that. Oh, that's fine. That's fine. So I'm going to use e dot target dot set attribute. Set attribute, and we have to use the style, and we have to pass the style as the parameter here. So I'm going to use style. Alright. So let me save this and execute in the browser. So just refresh. Yes, this is not applying. So whenever we are going to hover that, so we have to apply some kind of styles we used already. So e dot target dot set attribute. So let me check the elements. So we have, because we are applying the content dynamically, right? So we have to check with the element. So in the element, yes, this is an object. We are able to see this is an object. So style equals to object, object and object. So that is the reason the styles are not applying here. So we applied style, that's fine, but this is an object. So what we have to do, so I'm going to use the style only and save this and execute, refresh. So again, we're able to see that object. I'm going to use something like very simple scenario. E dot target dot style dot background equals to, that is green. All right. So let me save this and execute. Now we are able to see this. So we are able to apply the green color background. So let me refresh this once again. Yeah, this is fine. So we are able to get the effect. So this is very complex scenario, but instead of it, it's better to use the class directly. So it's better to import a CSS file, and we can get a class name from here, and we can apply the style properties to this directly by using set attribute function. So not only this, we can apply any kind of styles by using syntax like this. Both operations is same. Use above what? Background, yes, background and background color is same, right? So is that clear? Chetan asked me this. So such a wonderful question. So thank you for asking this kind of questions, Chetan. Is that clear, everyone? Is that clear how to capture the event, and based on that event we can apply the styles? Yes, it's clear. So we can use set attribute, but set attribute is a JavaScript function, right? So whenever we are going to use set attribute function, that is a JavaScript function. So in React, the syntax is completely different. The functionality is similar, but the syntax is completely different. So when we are going to use set attribute, we can apply the ID and class name, but we are not able to apply that object directly. For example, I'm going to get information from app.css. So here we have app.css, right? So we have app.css. Let me click on app.css, and I would like to create a class here. So along with the class name, that is change background. I'm going to use change background. So this is a class, right? So I'm going to use background. So and the color for this is green. I just used green. Alright. So this is the class, that is change background, and this is the property, and this is the value. Alright. So let me save this and open app.js, and here, so you can use set attribute. So I'm going to use set attribute. So here we have to use class name, and you can use the class name, that is change background, right? So dot, no, that is change background, directly we can implement it. So change background. So change background is the class name. So let me reset it. So in app.css we have change background. Yes, it's fine. So I just apply change background, and we have to import it. So we have to import this app.css in app.js. So I'm going to use import. So import, and we have to use, what is that? So app.css. So yes, let me save this and execute in browser. Refresh. And we are getting error. No, not an error, but we are getting warning. So style is assigned, but okay, no problem. So class name, that is change background, but it's not matching here. So class name, that's fine. So we used, what is that? So I'm going to use class because we are using the JavaScript, right? The JavaScript functionality. Refresh class change background, that is working. What is the background is having here? BACKGROUND background. Why invalid property name? BACKGROUND. Let me check a look into this. BACKGROUND background, that's fine. So we're able to see. So okay, let me use background color instead of background and save this and execute. Again, we are able to see invalid property. Invalid property. Why? So no, okay. So we are using double quotation. So sorry for this. So whenever we are going to use CSS file, we have to represent the color name directly, right? So we need not to use any kind of double quotations. So now we are able to see that result. Initially, we have the sentence like this. When we are going to hover, so we are able to see the change. So this is how we are going to apply by using set attribute function. So we just used set attribute function, e.target.set attribute, and we applied the class as well as this. This is the class name, that is change background. I hope it's clear to everyone. Is it clear, everyone? Yes. So is there any doubts? So thank you for asking this kind of doubts, because we taught many students, but we didn't get any kind of questions like this. Okay, it's clear. It's clear. So what about others? What about others? So only few members are responding in the chat box. What about others? Okay, it's clear. So let me continue with the next concept. This is fine, right? So all right, guys. So it's time to discuss the next concept. I think the hooks concept is clear. So very similar to this, we used set data function. This is for data manipulation. As we discussed earlier. So I'm going to remove all the stuff because you already understood. So for better understanding, so I'm going to save this in the document. Control C, and I'm going to share the document. So we already created the GitHub repository. GitHub and 404 error. So I'm going to use repositories, and I think this one, React documentation. So let me click on edit button. So this concept is applying dynamical styles. Applying styles dynamically. So this is the code. Paste it. Alright, this is the function for applying styles dynamically. Now this one. Okay, that's clear, and so now it's time to focus on the functionality of setData. So yes, so we have this function and we need to implement the functionality of setData. So we know we need not use this header part. So here I'm going to remove all the stuff that is function on all the stuff. So no. So we already defined that. So where style equals to background, and I'm going to remove this one also. And this is the set state, and okay. So this information we are having currently, so I'm going to use the second largest heading again. So in that we know how to display that information. So I'm going to display the data by using data.name, and here what we have to do, so we have to use data.name, and so we can simply use any other operations. So second one is data.role. So I'm going to use data.role. So this is a combination, right? So this is the combination. Why we need to use this one in between this? So it's better to remove all this stuff. So it's better to use backstick symbol. So I'm going to use backstick symbol, and here we have to represent the dollar. Then this one also, and now I'm going to use the imply symbol. So again we are getting error. So let me execute. Yes, we are able to see that, because so we need not to use any kind of backsticks. So we have to use backticks for template lettering. Now it's fine, but we are able to see the error. What is happening here? Unexpected taken. Did you mean? Okay, no problem. That's not a problem. So we have to use the code for declaring the values like this or symbols like this. That is the reason we are getting some kind of error in the coding part, the Visual Studio Code. So now we know how to change the values of it. So we have to use setData function. And how we are going to change based on the callback functions. For example, I'm going to use on mouse over. We are going to use a callback here. On mouse over, we have to use a callback. So I'm going to use change data. I just used a function that is change data, chang. All right, so chang, change data. So whenever we are going to mouse over to this element, so then we have to call this function. This is the callback. And okay, so change data is not defined. So okay, let me define that. So let me use where change data, and we have to use this operation like this, and here we have to implement the functionality. So here we have to call the setData function. So we know how to use the setData. By using setData, we can manipulate that information. So let me use setData function here. So we know setData is a function, something like this. And we are able to, yes, we are focusing on the object. So that is the reason I used object syntax, that is set basis. And I'm going to use name. I'm going to use Rajesh again, and role, that is one developer. Alright, so let me save this and execute in the browser. Yes, we are able to see that. So we are able to see the change. So when we are going to refresh this, we are able to see the initial values, that is Hanuman, and we are able to see the role here. When we are going to hover this is the change in it. So this is how we are going to change by using callbacks. So here we used a callback, that is change data. Change data is one of the function. We are calling to this function, and here we are changing this information. So this is manipulating the data based on the callbacks. Is that clear, everyone? And they respond. Yes, it's clear. So all of you are practicing, right? All of you are practicing and just listening to the class. So if you are listening to the class, you are not able to ask any kind of questions, because the practical exposure, that is very, very important. Practicing. Okay. Just practicing. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for responding, each one of you. And again, I'm going to open the code part. So here, the next concept. So let me remove all the stuff. So except the export method. So here I'm going to represent the function. This function app, function app, and we know how to use the return statement and all this stuff. So we have to use the return statement, and we have to use the fragments, and here we have to represent the elements. I'm going to use h2, and this is sample data. All right, this is the sample data. All right, so this is very clear, and I'm going to use, yes, we need not to use the binding statement. So this is the sample data. Let me execute, refresh it, and now we're able to see the sample data here. Oh, okay. Again, I'm going to use header.js here. So what is the information available in header.js? So we have a React training. That is the information we are having in the header.js. So let me use the import statement. Import header from, I'm going to use dot header. Alright guys, now we have to use the header part. So what is that header? Header, and we have to use self-closing element. Alright. So we are able to see that information, that is React training. This React training is represented in this header.js. And if you want to pass parameters, or if you want to pass data from app.js to header.js, that is also one of the important concepts in React. So most of the cases, when we are going to have, or when we are going to use multiple components, we have to pass that information between them. So that is the one of the important concept in it. So, but how we are going to pass that? So this is in app.js, right? So we can pass the data. For example, here I'm going to use name equals to Hanuman, and again I'm going to use role equals to full stack developer. So I just used header name equals to Hanuman and role equals to full stack developer. That's it. And save this, but we are passing this information by using this time. This is clear, but how we are going to get the data from header.js? So we are passing data from app.js to header.js. That means app is the parent, header is the child here. So we are maintaining a relation that is parent to child. We are passing data from parent to child here. So let me open the child, that is header.js, and here this is the function component. So we have to pass the parameter, that is props. We have to use props. I just used props as the parameter. You can use any other names, because this is for better understanding. So I just used props, and from here we can access the data. So what is that? So we have props, right? So props, that's fine. And what is that information? So name and role. So what we have to do? So we have to use props.name. Sorry, this is the name, props.name. And what we have to do? We have to use props.role also, right? The next value, props.role. Again, save this and execute in the browser. So now we are able to see that information, Hanuman and the full stack developer. So this is how we are going to pass data from one component to another component. If you want to pass data from one component to another component, we have to use props concept. So this concept is called as props. Here we are maintaining the relationship between the parent and child. So app.js is the parent and the header.js is the child. We are passing data from app.js to header. Okay? That is parent to child. So, and we are accessing that information by using props dot the key values. That is props dot name and props dot role. Now this is that. So we are able to see the result here. Is that clear, everyone? How we are going to pass the data from one component to another component. Kindly respond. If you are confusing, I will explain it again. Don't worry about it. Yes, it's clear. So only one guy responded. What about others? They are understanding or not? Explain once again. Okay. What about others? Explain once again, sir. Yes, it's clear. So, okay. Whatever it may be, it's better to explain it again. So if you are having any kind of doubts, you can rectify here. So yes, I'm going to remove all the stuff again. So I'm going to use h2, and in between these tags, I'm going to use the component name. This is header component. So this is the header component. Header component, and in app.js, so we'll try to remove all the stuff again. So we just imported, so that is header.js. We just imported this header. So that is import header from header. So we are importing the data from this header. So this header is the alias name for this file. Alright. So header. So this is header, right? So we just use this information and save this and execute. Now we are able to see the header component information here. This is the header component. This is the header component. Alright, so this is how we are going to use composition. That means combining multiple components together. So we just used header component here, and we are accessing that information in the app component. Now this is the app component. So we are using header in app. That means app is the parent and header is the child here. When we are going to pass data from parent to child, how we are going to do that? So we have to use props concept, and we have to use attributes. So I'm going to define attributes here. So we have to use name, and I'm going to use Hanuman. So again, role. So I would like to use the person's name. Most of the cases I'm using my name only. So I'm going to use Chetan. Alright, so a role is full stack developer. He is a fresher. Yeah, so this is the information we are representing here. So header name, that is Chetan, and role is fresher. Alright guys, now it's time to execute. So in this, if you want to access the props, first of all we have to remove the statement. We are passing the parameters here. If you observe this, we are passing the data by using key value pay. Name Chetan, name is the key, Chetan is the value. Role is the key, fresher is the value here. So we are passing data to this component, that is header component. So we know what is the header component here. So this is the header component. This is having some kind of sample data in it. This is the app.js. Clear, right? So now we are passing this information, that is name, Chetan, role, fresher. So where we are passing to this? So we are passing to the header component, because we mentioned the header component here. So we have to use props. Not only props, we can use any kind of customized name instead of props, because for better understanding, I'm going to use this props, because this concept is called as props, passing parameters from one component to another component. This process is called props. That is the reason I represented this parameter as props. So you can use your customized name. So again, if you want to display that information, that is props, let me execute. So just refresh this. So we will get some kind of error because we are returning a direct object. So we have to use the keys of it. I'm going to use props.name, and I'm going to use working as, so here props.row, props.row, that's it. So we are using props.name working as props.row, that's it. And save this and execute. Yes, here we are able to see Chetan working as, if he is a fresher, so we just represented fresher, right? So we are able to see that information here. Is that clear now? Is that clear, everyone? Yes, clear. Yes. Yes, clear. It's clear. Okay. So if I'm going to pass multiple parameters, something like I'm going to use an array, that is collection. So I'm going to use a collection here. So because here we are passing parameters, single parameter, and this is the single value. But how we are going to pass the data from collection? So we have to represent the collection here. I'm going to use where data is the collection here, and I'm going to use the array, that is Durga. So we have Durga here, Durga, and Rajshekar Reddy also there. So I'm going to use Raja. So Chetan is already there, right? So Chetan. So most of the cases we are getting doubts from Fatima, right? I think C is option 2. Okay, so Chetan, yes, Bhupendra is also there. Bhupendra, Vamsi, yes. I'm going to use Bhupendra and Vamsi also. Bhupendra and Vamsi. So we defined an array. Similarly, I'm going to use roles data. That is roles data, and I'm going to use another collection. So here software engineer, and here's testing engineer. So I'm going to use different kinds of roles here. So web developer and app developer. So how many names are there here? So Durga, Raja. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have to represent 5 roles here. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So finally I'm going to represent another data. So that is app developer, and finally iOS developer. Okay, so we have this data. So if you want to get that information, what we have to do? We have to use index values, right? So what we have to do? We have to use for loop. I'm going to use for loop. So for I'm going to use in operation, because we can get data by using index values. For I in data, so what is happening? So we are not able to get information. So for I in data, so what we have to do? So yes, we are not able to use any kind of uh, looping concept in the return statement, because return statement only returns only single value, right? Okay. This is not possible. it's not possible to use this, but we can call a function, I think. So okay, so let me call a function. Why we are wasting time here? So we call a function, and I'm going to use for loop in it. We use the for loop for I in. So yes, we are getting error. So again we are getting error. Okay. So yes, okay. It's better to define a function, but what we have to do, so we have to define function in inner. We use a for loop here for, and I'm going to use yes. So where I in, so what is the data? So we have data, so that's fine. And here we have to use braces, right? So this is a for loop, and it's better to return the value. So we are using in operator. That means we can get the index values. So we can get the index values. So what we have to do, so we have to use the header element. So we already used header. That is starting with capital header, and so yes, we have to use self-closing element, right? So I'm going to remove all the stuff. So I just used a self-closing element. All right. So here we have to pass the data. So that is name equals to, and what we have to do, so we have to pass the data that is from data of I, right? So that is data of I, and here, so what we have to do, so we have to pass the data from, that is role, right? So role equals to, and we have to use braces, and here we have to pass the roles data along with the index value, that is I. Okay, so we just used the data like this. So what we are doing here, so we are calling this header multiple times. That means how much data available in those arrays or the collections. A number of times we can execute this header. Let me save this and execute in the browser. Just refresh. So we are getting sample data only. So warning, so here we have functions are not valid as React child. This may be happen if you return a component instead of component from render. Or maybe you meant to call this function rather than return it. Okay, so let me check it out. So we just using header name, and that's fine. So what is the data available here? So prof.name, that is also fine. So what is the data here? So let me use whether the component is calling or not. So component sample data is fine, but we are not able to get that information from app.js. So for example, I'm going to use console.log statement here. What will happen? So because in the return statement, we can't implement the looping concept, but we just tried. I'm going to use I. Save this and execute. Refresh and open there the console. Yes, this is the warning. So we are able to see that error here. So functions are not valid as a root child. This may be happen if you return a component instead of the component from head from render, or maybe you meant to call this function rather than returning it. So we are not able to use any kind of looping concepts in return statement. So here every time we have to call this function. So let me use a calling function. So this is not possible actually. So but we are trying that. We are trying just a refresh, and yes, we are able to see the access here. So what I'm going to do, so I'm going to call the header here, header, and we have to close that by using self-closing element. And here I'm going to use name equals to, so that is data data of I, data of I, that's it. Name equals to data of I, and that's fine. And we have to use the role is roles data of I, roles data of I. So and execute, let me save this and execute, refresh the data. So we are not able to get the data again. Is that header is calling or not? So header is calling. So name equals to data of I. Everything is fine. So when we are going to remove this is an error. You already know about. So when we are going to use console.log statement, that is works fine. Console.log, and I'm going to use data of I. Data of I. So console spelling, okay. Console.log and data of I. That's fine. We'll save this and execute. Yes, we are able to see that information here. So what is that error? Console? Yes. Let me refresh. So yes, we are able to get that information here. Header is different but never used. That's okay. But we are able to get that information. Data fine. That's fine. So yes, we just used index values. So we just used index values, right? So that's not a problem. So we are able to see that information. The values are displaying here. So okay. So where I in data and console.log statement and data of I. That's fine. So here I'm going to pass this. Header name data of I. Again we are getting sample data only. So okay, no problem. And we're going to pass a sample data instead of it. Something like hi. And I'm going to use role. It is something like hello. Save this and execute. Refresh. Yes, we are not able to call that function also. Import header. So role data is assigned and value but never used. No one used it as. I use assigned a value but never used. That's fine. And that's a sample data. That's also fine. State. Choose switch statement. No. We need not use any kind of switch statement. And rows data is not selected. Yes, it's selected, but okay. We are not able to call the header here. So whenever we are going to use any kind of other statement, that is something like h2. When I'm going to use that, for example, I'm using h2. So in that h2, I'm going to display the data. That is the data of I. That's working fine. And save this and execute in the browser. Refresh. Oh no. So even we are going to display that information by using h2, but we are not able to get it. I think we have to use a return statement here. I'm going to use return. Save this and execute. Yes, now we are able to see this. We missed the return statement. That is the reason we are not able to get the result. And so in the for loop, we can return a single value but not multiple values. Okay, one of my colleagues suggested that, so it's better to use map function. Okay, no problem. I'm going to use map function here. So what is that? So data dot map function. I'm going to use map here. So whatever it may be, this is also a looping statement. I'm going to use h2. h2, that is data file. We can represent that by using it, right? So this is the JavaScript value. So that is like, save this and execute. Yes, we are not able to get that information. So whatever it may be, we are using the looping only. So I'm going to use return statement again. So we are not able to get any kind of data. Okay, so let me remove all this stuff. Save this and execute. Yes, each child in a list should have a unique key prop. Okay, so that's fine. And so let me use the key prop here. So if you observe this here, each and every child should have a key prop that provides the uniqueness of each and every element. So I'm going to use key here. So that is key, and key equals to, I'm going to use I as the value. So we have to provide the unique information for each and every element. So let me use that and let me refresh. And now we're able to see this. So sample data, and this is all that information. And very similar to this, now it's time to call that header. And I'm going to use header here. So I'm going to use name. Sure. But map is okay, but we are not able to call multiple iterations, right? So we have two kinds of data here. So that is data and the rows data. But by using map, we can get only data from one array or one collection. So let me use that here, data often. Alright, so let me save this and execute in the browser. No, we need not use any kind of data of I. So we are returning the information, that is I. So let me use I directly and save this and execute. So Durga working as, Raja working as, Chetan working as, and we are able to see this result. But this is not the exact solution because we need to iterate this element also, and we have to combine the return statement together. Okay, so this is all about today, and we'll continue tomorrow, everyone. So because the time is already 6:30, and we'll continue tomorrow. So we'll continue from same concept from tomorrow. Okay. So let me execute this program again. This is already executed, so no problem. So this is all about today, and it's time to wind up the session for today, and we'll continue tomorrow. Okay, thank you everyone.